What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Nights at the Round Table. It's your boy, Manwells, and I got my homeboy, Rick and Deanna, and today we are talking about what it takes to be a good parent, or am I a good parent? I know that's a weird question to ask because I feel like parents are like feeling like weird about that question. You guys are actual parents. I don't know. Like, have you ever looked at each other and been like, man, we're crushing this. Like,
All the
we're
time.
Oh yeah.
All
do
the
you
time.
Oh
All the
yeah.
time.
Oh yeah.
I can only
All the
imagine some
time.
parents are like, "Man, I don't ever feel good enough." At least that's what we see in the
I mean, you
movies,
go
you
through
know?
that too, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. You
for
feel like
sure.
that sometime, but the majority of the time we look at each other like, man, we are killing this. Like
We're
so and so can do this and this and this. And yeah,
we're
most of
crushing.
the time. We're
But
killing it.
look, but in my mind, I think what I feel would make me a good parent at the beginning is just that the baby stays alive, because I have this insatiable fear of like, yo, like what if, like, I don't know everything about this little kid and they can't communicate to me. Like, I'm nervous that I'm not gonna catch something. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
That's very real. I there are some distinct memories when the boys were really young, and so just for the audience, a little background about us. We are blended families, so we actually, I call it a starter kit family. She had a daughter. She was 2 years old. We were friends for a year. We dated for a year. I was in that little girl's life for a long time, a couple years before we got married. So, and then have been in her life since. So, nobody couldn't tell me she wasn't mine. But I didn't start with her, you know what I mean? And so when the boys came along, that was like the one that they were the fresh start. And there were some very vivid memories when both of them, they're 18 months apart. And when we brought them home for the first 6 months, I mean, still there's a component of this to this day where it's like, are they still breathing? Is everything okay? But especially in those first few months, because you hear all the stuff with SIDS and with the babies and whatever. And when you put them down, and they could be fussing all the time, and then when they finally do go to sleep, you're like, did they go to sleep or did they die? Like, and so there was a period of time for that, and then eventually, like, especially when you get them sleep trained and kind of get that whole thing sorted out, you think about it less. Now it's just more about, and I was telling you this the other day, like when they're toddlers, it's like, oh my God, you don't realize how many things, like everything can kill them. Like literally,
Right.
like the most benign, mundane, the corner of the table, stupid things, like just everything is a weapon. And for some reason, they always want to explore that. So all the parents in the audience will be like, amen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like it's like different phases. And now, like with my that same daughter, she's 18. It's like life decisions can kill you. Like, the wrong relationships can kill you. Like maybe it's a slow death, or she's driving and I'm like, cars will kill you. You know what I mean? So there's
Yeah.
that
You
component. I
never
don't.
stop worrying,
Yeah, that
but
doesn't really ever go away.
as infants, they only have, a few needs. So it's like they're only crying for a few things. They're hungry, they're tired, they're wet. Like,
Right.
or they may be, one of our boys, I can't remember which one, had what was it called?
Colic.
Colic. So, you Google things, you call your
Yeah.
doctor, this is what's going on. Why won't they stop crying? And he would
Right.
cry every night
Constantly.
from what was it, from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock, constantly, every night.
Right.
I went through every season of Everyone Loves Raymond, because that's what I would turn it on. He would cry and we would just walk around and watch every single episode, every single season. So like once the doctor was like, it's fine, it's normal, this is what you do, then you keep pushing.
Right. Right. I think there's things about that being a parent, or at least my thoughts about becoming a parent, that I feel like ideally I would want to accomplish. So I've been like hung up on a couple things. I've been hung up on entitlement, because I'm like, it's so hard right now for kids growing up not to feel or like innately become entitled because of how much access they have to everything. And so for me, I'm like, man, how do you raise a kid that's not entitled? And of course, okay, so these are my ideas. I think, all right, I'm not giving this little girl screen time. Like, I want to prevent as long as I can screen time. Like, to me, I'm
Yeah.
like, if I can just not have devices, if I can somehow keep them entertained with the real world, then maybe I have a chance at them not being comparative or feeling like they're behind, because I like, even with my little godson that's there, like, he has this, I gotta get a phone, like, I have to be on my phone, I have to be text me, I have to. And that worries me because I feel like once you get on socials, once they approach that, like, comparison's coming right around the corner. Like, you can't help it. Before, when we were kids, it was just very much, I'm hanging with the homies in the same neighborhood and we all have the same house. So we're not like, oh, this is we, oh, I'm so jealous of your house, when we all have the same thing.
Yeah.
But for me, now it's like, oh, now I can compare myself to like rich kids that I'm following or other, we do it now. I do it with real estate all the time. I'm always feeling behind, and I'm a grown man who's been successful, and I'm still like, man, I'm so behind. So I can only imagine younger kids and what that effect can have on them.
Yeah.
I would definitely say no screens as long as possible. Like that, I'm 100% down with that. Our daughter, who's 18, just recently got a phone, and now she's starting to experience that, comparison and, I'm not good enough. And so it's like, I can't imagine if she would have started at 11 with a phone and
Yeah.
what that would do now that she's 18. But now that she's an adult, she's like, adults have those feelings. So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, we can talk like adults. We can work through this. Life's not over because you don't look like this person or you don't have what this person does. But as a child, it might be a little more difficult to explain to them what comparison does and what jealousy is and what envy is and what,
Right.
So I'm 100% against screens. I mean, I homeschool my kids. So it's like, I literally have to entertain them all day long. So
Right.
we have a battle with screen time and cutting it out. And we recently did that with them. And I can't tell you how creative and they
How
create.
creative they've been. Yeah.
They make things, they draw, they created Brothers Day, which is every Wednesday.
Brothers Day.
There's an alarm
They-
on the Alexa. It's like,
it's an alarm on
Brothers Day.
our Alexa that says today is Brothers Day, and
That's
they
so
hang out
cool.
all day. So they get creative. They will
Yeah.
create things to help the time go by.
Right.
Yeah.
We have, there's somebody on Instagram. Hey, Sigrid. If you guys are watching on Instagram, go to my link in my bio, hit the YouTube on Nights at the Round Table and the Linktree, and you can come follow us. We're going live on YouTube. Come meet me over there. There's hey, Sigrid. She said, I regret completely getting my 14-year-old and now 15-year-old phone. She completely regrets it.
Look, man, when I think about the screen stuff, I think about a couple of things that have come to light. And you can Google this, cross-check me. I could be completely wrong. But from what I understand is that the creators of these platforms don't allow their children to get on them. If you watched, what was that Netflix special, the social network or the social
experiment,
experiment. There's a documentary on Netflix that talks about.
Oh yeah, that was a great one.
And they're saying, like, if there's no product, you are the product. And these algorithms now are tracing our steps and everything we do. And as an adult, our minds have difficulty wrapping around. We are creating neurological patterns and behaviors in our adult minds. It's altering society, right? Never mind. I say this all the time. Like, we're 1980s babies, right? Like, we have one foot in analog, one foot in digital. We're literally the last generation to kind of experience. We're not tech. I don't know. It depends on who you ask. Some people consider us millennials. Some people don't. They say 1980s the cutoff, and then 1981 is the beginning of the millennial generation, right? I feel like I have a lot of millennial tendencies, but that's because I have one foot in analog and one foot in digital. I could throw the phone away and be chill. Like, sometimes I'm just highly irritated by it, and other times I find myself like, oh my God, I get to the point where sometimes I'm staring at Instagram or whatever, where literally I can feel my vision blur. And I'm not processing anything that I'm actually looking at it. I'm literally, my brain is shut off. I'm not even thinking anymore. I'm just scrolling, and I've created a pattern. And when I snap, I'm like, oh, this is disgusting. Like, I don't like that. And so what I personally had to do was kind of, if the algorithm is studying me, I'm going to tell the algorithm what I want. And I transitioned all of that to business information. So no more like, fluff. I still get it, because I think that's a part of the thing. They want you to take you in certain directions. But all that to say, that's me as an adult with 43 years of experience under my belt, not my 7-year-old who knows nothing and is distracted by sound, color, and flashing lights and entertainment. And that's all they want. The dopamine hits that you get are creating neurological and behavioral patterns. There's a deep implication that is far beyond just like, here, I want my child to be distracted for a few minutes while I go focus on this other thing. And I get that. Like, I'm not mad at that. We have done that. Okay.
Right.
But I think if you're being conscious about and deliberate about your parenting, you have the authority to make the deciding decisions. I'm not really with this whole kind of new movement of like never saying no and creating, I don't know. I feel like some people throw out like the trauma thing. Emotional damage. I'm like, bro, like some of that stuff shapes you in a good way. That's good. No means no. Foolishness is caught up in the heart. There's, what is it? The word that says, there's foolishness in the heart of a child. And there's foolishness in the hearts of adults. Never mind. What is my expectation of my child? I have to be realistic with that. But if I have created an environment in which I am facilitating a behavior, how can I be upset at him or her when I have paid for it? I have created the environment. I have endorsed it. I have said, hey, your face-to-face time is not worth my, it's not, it doesn't carry a high enough value for me. So here, go away, go entertain yourself. I need you to be quiet right now.
Well, most parents attribute it to, because I was talking to my boy Jordan, and he was like, "Bro, wait till you're at a restaurant and your kid's screaming bloody murder, and all he wants is a screen." And I'm like, am I being naive in thinking that? Not that my kid won't throw a fit, but is it naive to think that somehow you can calm that down with, and parents, whoever's listening or watching, this isn't something that's judgmental. If you have a screen, I'm not like, it's not like, oh my God, it's so bad.
Yeah.
But is it naive to think that if you, I don't know if train's the right word, but get them to learn to self-soothe without a screen.
Train is the right word. 100%. I tell my kids all the time, listen, like we are your cheat. We are your cheat code in life. Me and mom are like rails. We're left and right. Right. And in the beginning, the rails are tight, or we're like training wheels, but eventually those training wheels are going to come off. But if you haven't learned how to ride correct with the wheels, you're not going to ride correct without them. So, I like to think of us as rails. Like, in the beginning, you're not going to have a lot of freedom. You're going to bounce off your rails a lot. You're going to run it. It's abrasive. Like, hey, don't do that. Hey, it's all day training. It's behavior. Like and that's fine, because you know what? The thing is like the people who are like, or I should say the philosophy that says that I don't want to tell my kid no. We don't operate in a world like that. There's a stop sign out on the corner of the street. If that kid doesn't learn the no in the drive, you could kill yourself and potentially kill someone else who has nothing to do with you.
Right.
So, and that's a small metaphor, but it's just true across the board. Like, if we don't learn a certain sense of self-discipline, how can we give that to our kids? And if they don't learn it, how can we expect them, how can we have any healthy expectations of them when they haven't learned these things in their formative years, right? It's not that they can't later, but it's easier now. So for us, like, it's very important to kind of establish these things. And let me just disclaimer, everything I'm saying is because ask me how I know, because we've failed at all of that.
Right, so you tried it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like trial and error, even as adults. It's like, oh, this sucks. When I give them full screen time, they turn into idiots. So, I'm going to pull this back because I don't like the path that I see this child going down.
Right. We have a Natalie saying my 3 babies ain't having phones until they're 18.
Nice.
Arlie says, I think there's definitely
Yeah.
a balance between screen time, but keep it away as long as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
These kids are not 100% screen free. Let me be clear. They still get them, but they're just not like, it's just not it's not a knee-jerk reaction. Here, go, fine. Here, go.
Right,
go.
right.
Wait, one thing to your friend who said when you go out to a restaurant. So one thing that I used to do with my kids is we would go out to restaurants in the middle of the day, just us, different restaurants to kind of teach them, train them, whatever word you want to use, how to behave in a restaurant. So it would be like Denny's or McDonald's or Wendy's or whatever. So then when you do go to maybe an upper scale restaurant or a nicer restaurant or wherever, your kids have been to a restaurant before. This is not the first time they've seen, a fork and a knife and a bunch of
That's
glasses.
interesting. So you go to lesser scale restaurants to prep them.
Yes, we would go to Denny's.
Don't act like animals. We would go here before.
No, we would go to Denny's on a Monday morning at 9:30, and they would have silverware and crayons, and I would bring toys. I had goodie bags in my purse, little surprises that they could open, and it was teaching them this is how we act in a restaurant. We don't climb under the table. We don't knock things over. If you do, it's okay. We'll clean it up. But you got to train your kids. They're not going to know it. They're not just going to go and sit and be quiet. And yes, if you do give them a phone and there's colors and sounds and cartoons, of course they're going to stare at it. But there are other ways that you can start young, training your kids how to act in different situations.
Right. Natalie says she has to put her phone away hours at a time just to stay locked in with their kids. Alex says it's not just that. It's crazy how these devices are controlling our lives no matter what age. Alex also says something. He goes, my child would know what a chancla is.
Oh, yes. What
I love that. Yasmin says my 5-year-old has never thrown a fit in public. Bless you, Yasmin. I'm praying for the spirit of Yasmin Pantaleon in my child.
Yes.
Because if she don't throw a fit, I would be amazed. Alex says it starts at home, man. If we can't spend time with the kids at home and get annoyed and need to give them a screen, that's what's stopping them from the want of the screens outside of the home. So he says it's more about the time that you give them at home, which is kind of dope, like
Absolutely.
I feel like I have friends that are, I look at them and they're incredibly successful, not only in life, but I love their relationship. And they told me, they're like, our kids are like, I think he's 5 and she's 3. And they're like, they have not had a single ounce of screen time at all. And their goal is to build them up. I think they're gonna bring the boy to his first movie like in a year or two, and they're only gonna introduce movies like as special times, like kind of like what it was back in the 50s and 60s, where it's like, all right, we're going to the movies as a family, like this is a big deal.
It's cool.
Yep.
And I was so amazed by that, because I'm like, you get to create the mystique, the magic of something that you really enjoy, because you guys and me, like, we're massive movie people. And I do want to create the air that I still feel when I go watch a movie. Like, it's a very special thing to me. And so I'm thinking of like incorporating like daddy-daughter date nights. And it's like, I'm taking her to the movie and it's like super special.
Yeah.
But I like
dress up.
I like the idea of waiting till like 6 or 7. You know what I'm saying? Again, I saw a parent in the comments said it's different for every person. So I definitely don't want to pretend like, oh, this is my law. This is gonna happen. I don't know if it's gonna happen. This is just my attempt, which I think is, again, normal for parents. Like, so was there anything that you guys, before the kids came, you thought, we're gonna do this, and this is a good idea, it's gonna be awesome, and then when you had them, it was like, this is not working. Like, this idea is bad.
What there's a saying that I think it was from Mike Tyson, said everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I can't think of something specific. I will say, especially for all the sports fans out there, like, you can understand this, especially if you've actually played sports. Audibles are a must. This thing is, they don't hand you an instruction manual when you take the baby home, right?
Right,
Like
right.
it's all on you. This kid is either they're gonna thrive or they're gonna dive. And while that I won't put that entirely on the parent, because that child has a portion to play in that. We do carry a significant weight in their life, and that can be positive or negative. I mean, there are countless people, grown-ups, who are struggling today, men and women alike, who are dealing with things that started in formative years, man. Like whether that influence came from a dad or didn't come from a dad, and it should have, whether it came from a mom or it didn't, and it should have, you know what I mean? So, one thing I think is pretty crucial is, I wanted to kind of say this before, was the focus time. I've been trying to be very deliberate about not only what they do with their screen time, but what I do with mine in front of them, especially. Now, I run businesses from my phone and whatnot. But even to a certain degree, if I say, oh, but I run my businesses, and that excuse becomes the default for me, I feel like I am inadvertently saying that the business is the priority. And it's really not. Like, I only do the business for them. You know what I mean? So like when my sons come into the room, or my daughters will come into the room, and these guys want to ask me questions like nonstop, at the worst time, I'm literally in my office in work zone on the computer, and they're like talking to me like I'm not right here. Now,
Right.
That is a luxury that we've grown to afford because they've seen me work from home their entire life. But sometimes I'll be on my phone, and when they come in the room, I want to be deliberate about putting it down and looking at them in the face. What do you need, bud? How can I help you? Or just, hey, look, not right now. There's a time, like dad's in office hours, and then afterwards, then being focused and then being present and in that moment. Like, I'm a big proponent of that. I grew up in a single family home. My dad was a great dad when he was around, and he just wasn't around. You know what I mean? So, and I know how that affected me, and to this day. So I just never want them to feel like, even worse. I heard this too, that the tech is going to be this generation's cigarette. That kids are going to lose parents to tech because they can see them, but they're not there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's even worse than like, oh, my dad used to smoke all the time and he died. And now now I don't smoke because he had lung cancer.
Right.
So like I don't know, as a young generation, a younger generation, we ain't young no more. I think we just have to be cognizant of that and be aware that the tech is new and that this is untested. We don't have more than 20 years of history with this stuff and what that turns out to be. So that freaks me out a little bit. Like, we don't have any case studies.
It's scary.
We
about
do
the studies they do have. Like, they're already saying that this stuff, and not even case studies, but just seeing the kids that you like in my life that are in front of screens too much and what it does to them.
Mm-hmm.
But Savannah says, I said I would only feed my baby homegrown food. I would puree.
Yeah, we did that. We did that.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Nope.
Meal prep for a baby, like.
But it's okay. It's okay to do it for a season, but it's a lot of work. I was the same way. I think for me, the only thing I said that I don't know if we said we were going to do, but they were going to go to school. They were going to go.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
they were going to go to public school so that I could,
I said that before.
Hang out with my friends and dance and continue, my career and things like that. And, I think the first year we got married, it was like, yeah, it's not working. We're gonna have to bring her home. And we're gonna have to homeschool. So that changed my whole view of what my life was gonna look like.
What initially made you want to do that?
I think initially it was my daughter's behavior in school. So I have a sensitive spot for teachers. So I'm like, if my daughter is causing problems in the school, let me take her out and get a hold of her before. I used to joke with people all the time, like before she started robbing banks and stuff like that. Like, let me just pull her out. Let's get this coached up. Like you used to tell me all the time, let's get this coached up. Let's get this attitude right. Learn how to behave and sit in class. And then I'll put you back in school. Well, God had other plans, and
here we are.
She's about to graduate in 3 months. So, and I'm just continuing that on with the boys because it has been such a great benefit for our family in training our kids, our values and the things that are important to us, being able to put that into them all day, every day. Yes, there are sacrifices like, your free time and things like
Right.
that, but
Right.
we've made that work. So,
I mean, and that's something that I've even talked about with Ange, because I'm like, the fact that we live in Nashville and LA, it's like, all right, where do you, like, legit, where do you want to stick this kid in a school? Because we get the privilege of being like, we got a red state, we got a blue state, we got hella liberal, we got hella conservative. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm watching it play out, and I can see how parents, like, that's a big deal. And I always laugh because I told Ange, I was like, babe, we're never gonna be those parents that are like, we got to move to this this neighborhood so we can get in this school. I
good
was like,
school.
we're gonna live wherever. But when I started thinking about it, I was like, man, Josh sends his kids to, like, they homeschool, but he sends his kids to this place. I was just there last night, and it's literally this new way of teaching, which is just they only focus on what the kids are interested in. So Josh's son Asher is running a business. He started his own business and he gets to run it, and they teach him how to run it. He has intro to financing classes. He has, like, he learns about mortgages, like his
Come on.
daughter's learning about science, like all this crazy science, not like typical science, but like
Right.
in depth, like really
Mhm.
interesting things. And I'm like, do they have this in LA? Because I literally was thinking, man, I really don't want to send my kid down the path of what everybody thinks. Like, I'm like, if my kid shows interest in YouTube, like a legitimate amount of interest in YouTube or in something like that, I feel like, oh, I'm going to encourage this. Like, I'm going to try to facilitate, because I feel like they can literally do anything now. Stuff that
Yep.
we couldn't even dream of.
Mhm.
It's there for them.
Yep.
And so I definitely don't want to have too many ideas or thoughts of this is what I'm going to do. Like, I want to be able to flow and guide her, but at the same time, I'm asking myself like really tough questions. And one thing I asked Josh about, which we all come from a religious background, right? So we all were kind of, I mean, I wasn't born and raised in the church, but y'all were more than me. And I know we've kind of come to a newer season in life where now, I don't want to throw out the deconstruction word because I know it's triggering for a lot of people, but we've taken apart certain things
Sure.
that we thought were Jesus and found out it was more church than Jesus.
Right.
Mhm.
And we've been able to unpack that in our own life. And something I said to Josh, I was like, are you guys excited about your kids not having to go through that process? And I don't mean, I think we'll always be discovering our faith, and I think they'll be discovering it. But the deconstruction process of, like, it's almost like what parents did at school. Here, take my kid, teach them about math and and English. And then with church, it's like, here's my kid, teach him how to be good. Teach him how to be what or who Jesus is.
Mhm.
And I'm kind of more excited to be like, man, maybe I get the opportunity for her to skip that phase of like,
Mhm.
I need to tear down all this religious jargon and now build up my own. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I don't know
Mhm.
if you've gone ahead of that with your kids, or is it more of a like, still kind of like a mainstream idea way of thinking?
So this is interesting because this is when we kind of I don't know if wrestle is the right word, but it is something that we talk about, we work through in different ways, right? Because you don't realize when you're being raised, and this has not necessarily anything to do with church. There are ideologies and philosophies that are being imprinted on you subconsciously and consciously, that when you become married, when you become a parent, when you just become an adult, you will regurgitate them. There are patterns of behavior that have been imprinted on you because that is your environment. And it's just the way it was. Who took out the trash? Who paid the bills? Who did that? Who did these gender roles, like we like to hear, and things that are being kind of torn up now? Because where does that come from? It comes from these ideas that have been passed on because this is just how it has always been. Right now, as it pertains to church, I think for me is separating the idea, is first recognizing that there is a pattern in especially Western American church. And
Mhm.
I'm very, very hesitant to compare church culture to Christianity. And that has been the biggest deconstructing thing for me personally. I went to private school for 12 years. I was in, youth ministry for a really long time. Sunday, Wednesday attendee plus, retreats and mission trips and all that stuff. And I say all that to say, like, I'm not in a place in my life where I have looked back at that and been upset at those things.
Mm-hmm.
I can go back in my life and think about those experiences through an adult mind now, and I can look at them more critically, but I'm very grateful for them. And I only say critically based on a deeper understanding of the scripture from whence a lot of that stuff came. Right. So that's how I look at it. Not because, my feelings are hurt, or I'm not living how I know me personally, I'm convicted, or I'm not living how I should be living. And now I'm passing the blame because, it's because of this. No, it's like, oh no, I saw pastors act like ridiculous on a basketball court. I saw certain theologies pushed that are at the very least worth discussing and having a healthy discourse over it, as opposed to being like, no, this is absolute law. Mm-hmm. Like, and if you're not this, you can't call yourself a believer. So those things I have discrepancies with. So, but what I realize is that all of that stuff falls under this umbrella of church culture. And you could take out church and just put culture, because there's a culture at your job place. There's a culture in your home. There's a culture with your friends. You know what I mean? This is more psychology and human behavior. So if you go to a gathering with a bunch of human beings on a regular basis, there's going to be a culture there. And a culture is nothing more than the way people behave. So in a church environment, some people are going to talk to you, brother, and bless you and all that stuff. And that's fine. And that might be sincere. Okay. But I have also seen those same people outside of that environment turn into something else.
Right.
So learning to separate the church culture and the behavioral patterns from the authentic or the character of God as I understand it through scripture.
Thanks so much, y'all, for listening to part 1 of this episode. We appreciate it greatly. Hey, like and subscribe if you guys are feeling this. Share it with your friends. We appreciate it so much. Please come back next week for part 2. Love you.